We tested out all of American Express's cards in Canada, so you don't have to. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ayan, and today we're going to do a rundown of all of American Express's membership reward cards. Instead of ranking each card, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the perks and benefits, then move on to the amount of points that you can earn in a year, and then what you can use those points for. Let's start with what are American Express points. American Express points, or more commonly referred to as MR points, are American Express's in-house points currency. The way it works is quite simple. Let's say you went to a grocery store and used your American Express card, you'd earn some MR points on that purchase. Once you earn membership reward points, there's a lot you can do with it. You can purchase gift cards, merchandise, use Amex's fixed travel program, or transfer your points out. If you're curious about how to redeem your points, we've already made a video about that, so you can check that out after this video. Alternatively, you can contact us on the form in the description down below and we can help you with your exact situation. The last thing we want to talk about before getting into the cards is who and who shouldn't get these cards. The number one reason to get an Amex card is if you travel quite often and engage with the Air Canada Aeroplan program. The number two reason is if you don't mind putting a little extra work to find best value for your points, or else just take cash back. The third reason why you'd want to get an American Express card is if you're getting a lot of value out of the perks and features of the card. The number one reason why you shouldn't get an American Express card is if you don't want to complicate your life and keep things simple. The number two reason is if a lot of your spend goes to places that don't accept American Express. This could be like Costco or Loblaws. But in my experience, a lot of the places that I go to accept American Express. The third reason why you shouldn't get the American Express card is if you tend to hold a balance on your card. The American Express interest rates are super high. That's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to the credit card genius, Alyan, and he's going to tell you about all the cards.
The first card we're going to talk about is the Amex Green Card. And I would say this is the best card to get if you're just dipping your toes into the world of miles and points. It has no annual fee and regularly comes with a bonus of 10,000 membership reward points when you spend $8,000 on the card within the first 3 months. The earn rate is also pretty simple on this card. You're going to earn 1 membership reward point for every dollar you spend anywhere. There's no multipliers, no base earn rate of like 0.5% or anything. Everywhere you go, you're just going to earn that 1 MR point back. For a card that has no annual fee, I'd say this is pretty solid. It's more in line with all the other cashback cards, and if you do redeem your points for travel, you basically get 2% back everywhere you spend your money, which I would have to say is pretty strong value. In terms of perks and benefits, this card is also pretty lean, as you'd probably expect for a card that, has no annual fee, but it's still pretty decent if you think about all the value you could be getting, considering you're starting at basically zero. So let's say you got this card, how much value can you get from it over the course of a year? To calculate this, we took an average of our monthly spends, which stacked up something like this. Of course, everybody's different. There's a lot of calculators on the Amex site that you can use to see exactly how much you'd be getting back in your position, but we just want to use a general guideline to give a rough ballpark of how much we think we'd be earning from this card, and you can kind of adapt that for your own data. To see how many points you're going to earn, you basically just multiply the earn rate, in this case 1 membership reward point per dollar spent, across your total spend over the course of a month, and then multiply that by 12. In the first year, you're also going to get that 10,000 point bonus, meaning over the course of that first year, you'd earn something like 35,000 points back. Now, of course, these points have a range of value, but considering you're using a points card, we're going to run the assumption that you will end up redeeming these points for travel. In that case, we'd assign a value of about 2 cents per point for each MR point, meaning with about 35,000 points, you'd expect about $700 of value back. Subsequent years would give you about $500 back, which when you consider the annual fee is zero, that's pretty decent value. Now 35,000 points is quite a bit. There's a lot of ways you can use to really redeem it. In our opinion, a fantastic way of using AirMar points is by transferring them out to Air Canada Aeroplan at a 1-to-1 ratio. This means your 35,000 MR points are worth 35,000 Aeroplan points. I used 23,000 of these 35,000 points for booking Air Canada signature class from Toronto to Vancouver. I would say this is pretty stellar value, considering the return flight was only 6,000 points if I booked in economy class, so for 30,000 points I got to travel to Vancouver and back, which I'd say is pretty good. You can also take your MR points and transfer them to a bunch of other partners. One we talk about quite a bit on this channel is British Airways Avios. With Avios, you can book Spain's flag carrier Iberia for a business class between North America and Europe, which is only 35,000 points one way. Although Iberia isn't known for having the best business class product out there compared to, some of the other considerations, maybe Qatar Airways, maybe Singapore Airlines, 35,000 points, I really don't think you can make any argument here. It's challenging to find availability for this route sometimes, but if you ever see pop up, make sure to just book it right away a year out in advance, just to see if you can really experience that product for a very, very good value. Now that we talked about how you can use your points, What are some other things Amex throws in to really sweeten the pot? The card lacks all travel insurance, but you do get purchase protection and extended warranty, which is a nice thing to have. I personally have never really had the chance to use it, but if you guys have some experiences, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Two of the more valuable features here, at least in my opinion, are access to Amex front of the line. That gives you pre-sale access to a bunch of concerts and comedy shows. At certain events, they're also going to have a special line that you can use to just skip the entire regular queue. I know that at Oshega this year, for example, they had a special line that you could just pass through all the general admission with. And for having a card that costs nothing, it's pretty nice to just, take your Amex, go through that special line and save about 2 hours. Amex offers are also a really cool thing you get with any American Express. They basically function like coupons to some brands and restaurants. Some smaller ones I've gotten this year are like $5 back at Domino's over $25 that you can use a bunch of different times, so maybe you can save like $20 over the course of a couple of months, which is again, for a card with no annual fee, pretty solid. Now that we've talked through this entire card, who is it really for? If I were to sum it up in a couple of sentences, it's for people who don't have that high of a spend, that aren't traveling just yet, but they're looking to travel in the next couple of years, and they also don't really care about any of the perks and benefits you get with travel. If you're a student, I would say this is a great second card to get. It has no annual fee, the bonus is worth about $200 on its own, and you can just stack these points up and transfer them out for a little trip for you and your friends, or you can just save them up down the line when you're able to take a much larger trip, maybe to Europe or over to Asia. I would say if you're already familiar with the miles and points game and have kind of high spend, maybe over $1,000 or maybe over $1,500 a month, I think some other cards might be better value for you, just because even though you would be paying the annual fee on those other cards, you'd get so much more in terms of an earn rate that it would make up for the annual fee pretty quickly. Now there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all card, but for people in Canada, I don't think it gets anything closer than the Amex Cobalt. While the 15,000 point bonus is barely an upgrade on the Amex Green, some people are able to get a slightly elevated bonus of 22,000 points by using a refer a friend link, so be sure to ask your friends who have an Amex Cobalt if they can refer you, or feel free to use the one we have linked in the description below. Even that 22,000 point bonus is not really what all the fuss is about at all with this card. That comes in the form of its market leading earn rate. You get 5 points per dollar spent on dining and food delivery, as well as groceries, 3 points per dollar spent on streaming, 2x on transit, 1x on travel, and 1x everywhere else. Using the same spend we used on the Amex Green, on the Cobalt, you're going to earn 53,000 points instead of a measly 25,000, and you're going to earn an extra 15,000 for completing that bonus as well, which gives you a total value of about $1,300. Now in subsequent years, you're going to only earn that 53,000 points, which is again still really solid. It's over $1,000 in value, and you can redeem these points for many more things than you can maybe think about. Another spoiler alert here, this is the highest you're going to see of any of the Amex cards at all, so if you have a lot of spend going to a lot of things like dining and food delivery as well as groceries that have really high earn rates, this is probably the card to get for you just right away. Now what can you do with all of these points? 68,520 points to be precise. Now again, we're going to assume you want to transfer these points out because that's where you get the best value. For Aeroplan, you can fly from Montreal or some of the other destinations on the east coast of the US to Europe in business class for just 60,000 points. If you want to go from Toronto or anything westward, unfortunately it's 70,000 points for business class one way, but if you can find another 1,500 points laying around somewhere, that is a really good way to use your points. It also could be enough to get a round trip ticket in economy class to Europe and back, which is pretty good value for just 1 year of spending on your card that you do anyways. If you're willing to take a little bit more risk and have a last minute Avios redemption, you can often find American Airlines connecting from Toronto over to the US and then to Europe in business class for just 62,500 points, which usually opens about 15 days before departure. Again, risky business, but if you want to experience a totally different product, this might be the way to do that. It also only costs 20,000 points in economy, so if you're willing to save a little bit and you're willing to take a bit more of a risk, I would say this is probably the way to go, as you can get your entire trip done for just 40,000 points. Now this card is still running pretty lean on perks, but for $155, again, it's not too bad. The most notable addition here is travel coverage, and even though it's a little bit limited compared to other cards in this bracket, for example, something like the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card would have a stronger overall insurance package than this one, but it's still pretty solid at the end of the day. You miss out on trip interruption and trip cancellation insurance in this package compared to other cards, but that's not really a total deal breaker. It's just something that's pretty nice to have. Another thing to mention here, which is something we should mention for all MR cards, is if you transfer your points out and use them, you don't get any travel coverage even if you do pay the taxes and fees with this card. If you redeem them within the MR portal directly, that's where you're going to get some travel insurance, or if you book a flight with cash, again you'd also definitely get travel insurance there. Booking through the MR portal does give you worse value by quite a bit in most cases, So we would say just kind of risk it and just get travel insurance directly when you're booking. It's going to be about $20 if that's something you want to do. I think it's definitely much better than the $20 of differential value you'd be losing out by redeeming your points directly within the portal as opposed to transferring them out. One thing this card has that all other MR cards lack is mobile device insurance worth up to $1,000. If you charge the purchase price of your phone to this card, you can get up to $1,000 back in the case it gets lost or stolen. As with the Amex Green, you also get access to Amex offers, which again can save you anywhere from $50 to $100 a year maybe, which is pretty good to have. For $155, this card is meant to be the workhorse. It's a card you put all of your spend on and then just redeem for anything you want at the end of the year. For the average person, this is probably the card I'd suggest if you just want one credit card that you can put all your spend on and not have to worry about it. If you're in your mid-20s and your spend is kind of concentrated toward those higher end categories like dining, food delivery, and grocery, I would say this is probably the card to pick up if you don't really care about any of those additional travel perks, like maybe lounge access or hotel status. Now, the next rung up on the ladder is, of course, the Amex Gold Card. It comes with a solid 70,000 point bonus in tow when you use a refer a friend link, 60,000 for spending $1,000 on the card for every month in the first year, and also an additional 10,000 points when you spend $4,000 on the card within the first 3 months. It earns 2 MR points per dollar spent on travel, gas, grocery, and at drugstores. It also earns 1 point per dollar spent anywhere else, which again isn't the best earn rate at the end of the day, but it's also just not too bad. I think we're just comparing it to the Amex Cobalt, and of course, nothing will really live up to those 5x earn rates that we're going to see in Canada. I think objectively, this is pretty bad. For a card that costs $250 a year, you should have slightly better earn rates. There isn't really even a multiplier for the dining category, which I think is absolutely crucial to have, especially for an Amex card that, is meant to be more of a travel card, but kind of becomes a bit of a lifestyle card. You expect someone in your 20s or 30s to be spending on dining quite a bit, and the fact that it doesn't have a multiplier, which is a little bit disappointing. Now, over the course of a year, you're going to earn 35,000 points for spending on the card, which again is a far cry from that 55,000 you earn from having the Cobalt, but where this card really comes in is with the bonus. That 70,000 point bonus means you earn over 105,000 points on the card in your first year. This is worth a whopping $2,100 if you're just redeeming for economy class fares, and much more if you're redeeming for premium cabins like business or first class. For 105,000 points, you can pretty much fly anywhere in award space territory. You have options to go to Asia, the Middle East, or Europe in business class one way, and definitely within North America and to South America in business class round trip. In terms of business class, you can fly one way from Toronto to the Middle East for just about 90,000 points one way, which when you consider one of these business class fares goes for something like $4,000 or $5,000, you're getting pretty strong value. It can be a little bit tricky to find these fares, but if you're looking far out in advance, or you have a couple of random dates you can fly, or again, you're willing to risk it to, T-14, so 14 days before departure, you can pretty comfortably find award availability for most routes out of Toronto. If you're craving some ramen, Avios has you covered instead, where you can fly from anywhere on the west coast over to Japan or anywhere in Asia for just 77,000 points in business class one way. You'd be flying Japan Airlines business class, which is one of the best in the entire world, and again, for that 75,000 point mark, it's really strong value to have every single time. You can find award space pretty comfortably within 14 days of departure on JAL, maybe except during some of the Christmas months or maybe some time when you're going for cherry blossom season, for example, but most other times, T14 availability is pretty much just always there, so you shouldn't really worry too much and just book that product if you get that chance. Now, while the annual fee on this card is pretty high, there are a couple of benefits you get which really bring it down a peg. The first of which is a $100 travel credit, which basically just knocks $100 off the $250 annual fee, now giving you a net annual fee of $150. This puts it in the same ballpark as the Cobalt, where the Cobalt is really much more of a workhorse card. This card is just really there for a bonus, as the 105,000 points you earn in the first year is just pretty much unheard of and won't be touched by any other card we're really going to see, except maybe the next card that's coming right up. There's also 4 passes to Plaza Premium Lounges in Canada. Of course, these aren't the best lounges in the entire world, but they're pretty nice to have. If you want to just grab a bite before your flight or just take a few moments to relax, it's nice to just go in there, relax, have, an omelet or whatever the case, I don't know, whatever.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There's also a $50 Nexus credit on this card every 4 years, which again, if you travel to the US quite often, it might make sense to just pick up, because it can save you a bunch of time every single time, and I think $50 for Nexus is an absolute steal. I know they're putting it up to $120 next year, or at the end of this year, so if you're looking at this right now, be sure to apply right away, as you can get maximum value. You don't have to worry about it for the next 4 years. Of course, you get all the other Amex jazz like Amex offers, front of the line, etc., we're not going to dive into that for every single card because I think it'd just be a little bit repetitive. So who is this card really for? With the Amex Green, it was just for those who were dipping their toes in. For the Cobalt, it was a workhorse. And I think for this, it's really simple. It's just for the bonus. I don't think this is a card that you should be spending on year after year. I think this is a card you should get the entire bonus on, then swap over to a different card the year after, just because you won't be getting that same amount of value unless you really value the additional travel perks you're getting. Last, but certainly not least, is the Platinum card, which is the flagship of the American Express portfolio. The card currently comes with a bonus of 100,000 MR points, 70,000 when you spend $10,000 on the card within the first 3 months, and 30,000 points when you spend $1 on the card within months 14 and 17 of being a card member. This means you need to hold that card for the second year to get the full bonus and pay that annual fee twice, but you might be able to see why it's worth it over the next couple of minutes. The earn rate on this card again is pretty dismal compared to the annual fee. You get 2x on dining and food delivery, as well as 2x on travel and 1x everywhere else. Again, if you notice, no multiplier on grocery here. I guess people who have an Amex card just don't buy groceries. They just eat out all the time and they're willing to, take that 3 MR point hit compared to the Cobalt. But, Amex definitely knows best here and they're definitely maximizing the value out of the card holders for this. So, I guess, good on them. Now, over the course of a year, you're going to earn only 30,060 points from your spend, which if you think about, is the second lowest on this list, only compared to the Amex Green card, which has no annual fee. If you haven't noticed, this card is not meant to be a workhorse at all. The overall value you get at the end of the first year, though, is 100,000 points, which is, if you think about it, the same as the Amex Gold. Your second year value here is also 60,000 points, considering you get that 30,000 point bonus, in addition to the 30,000 points you get from just spending on the card every single day. Now, what can you do with that many points? We wanted to keep it a little bit fresh, so we mixed it up a little bit, even though it's pretty much the same as you'd get with the Gold. If you fancy going to the land of kangaroos and have the ability to pack up your bags pretty quickly, there's last minute award availability pretty much all the time from the West Coast over to Sydney, which is 15 hours in business class for just 87,500 points. That's pretty much maximizing your value all the way to the end. If you're able to find a friend and are willing to pay for their airfare, you can also take a round trip from Toronto over to Vancouver in Air Canada Signature class for about 92,000 or 95,000 points for both of you if you can find some good availability. I think that's, again, pretty solid value. For a while now, the US Platinum card has been nicknamed the Coupon Book, and that's kind of the direction Amex is going with it in Canada as well. Last year, American Express launched a $200 dining credit on this card, useful at all of Canada's ritziest restaurants. The list is still pretty limited right now, but it is expanding, and you also do have to spend $200 in one go at this restaurant, but luckily, looking at some of the prices on the menu, I don't think that's going to be a problem whatsoever. Similar to the Gold, the Platinum card also comes with a travel credit, taking pretty much everything the Gold has and just ranking it up just a little bit. On this card, you get a $200 travel credit instead of a $100 travel credit, which is, again, pretty nice because it knocks off $200 off that $799 annual fee. Keeping with the take what the Gold had and just make it better, there's now a $100 Nexus credit on this card as opposed to the $50, which is, again, nice to have. Overall, the net annual fee ends up being about $374 if you take advantage of all these credits to the max. That's not where it ends with perks and benefits though, as Amex has thrown a couple of other things to make that $374 a little bit more stomachable. Another perk that sets the Platinum apart from all the other things in the Canadian credit card space is the fact that it comes with hotel status. You get both Marriott Bonvoy Gold Elite and Hilton Honors Gold, which are nice things to have. They're not super useful in North America, but when you use them in places like Europe and Asia, you can usually get a small room upgrade and also maybe some free drinks vouchers or maybe some free breakfast if you ask nicely enough. If you fly through Toronto Pearson pretty often, you're also going to be really happy to have priority security line access. The only other way to get priority security line access is have either frequent flyer status or be flying business class all the time, two things which I don't really do. As someone who's pretty much made Pearson their second home over the last couple of years, I would say this is a really cool perk to have with the card because it doesn't matter what class of travel you're flying, you can just take advantage of this even if you're in economy. You can also bring all your friends along, which can just save everyone a bunch of time when you're going on a group trip. The travel insurance also gets leveled up to the max on this card, which is something you'd expect for $799, but as someone who's actually used it a few times, it's actually really nice. They don't really ask a lot of questions, as long as you have your receipts and everything when something goes wrong in your travel, which happens to me more than I'd like to admit. It's nice that you can just, submit all your receipts, go stay in a nice hotel, get some decent food, and not have to camp in a terminal overnight, and just, be kind of uncomfortable for the rest of your trip. Now, saving the best for last, unlimited lounge access is another thing that sets this card apart from, again, pretty much everything else. In Canada, this lounge access is really limited to Plaza Premium lounges, which as we talked about earlier aren't like the cream of the crop, but they're pretty nice to just relax on. Considering you have unlimited entries for yourself and a guest, you can just go there, chill out a bit, and just go to your flight. You get all Priority Pass lounges, as well as Amex Centurion lounges in the US and across the world. And lastly, you also get Lufthansa business class lounges, which are again really nice to have. It's nice that this lounge network expands to pretty much everywhere in the entire world, and almost every single airport you go to has a lounge you can get in with your Amex Platinum. So who is this card for? If you want all of the perks and are willing to pay for it, this card definitely can make a lot of sense to pick up. The other thing you want to consider is if you're going to be able to take advantage of all of the perks. Things like the dining collection are pretty limited, and it might not even be possible that there's a restaurant for this if you live in a smaller city within Canada. In my opinion, just the lounge access alone makes up for the annual fee quite a bit, because if you get another lounge pass, for example if you get a Priority Pass Unlimited membership, that can cost you several $100s, and it might as well just get more lounge access with this card and just pay that $375 annual fee every single year. So now that we've gotten near the end, what is the best Amex card? As usual, this card is pretty much impossible to answer. Amex has really positioned these cards very uniquely, and they all can make sense just depending on the person you are. As a general guideline, I would say the Amex Cobalt is like this Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, that I think has the strongest earn rates in Canada, and also has a couple of perks, so it's hard that you won't be able to find good value out of this card, no matter who you are. The Gold and Platinum are really there for the perks, not really for the spend, and the Green is really for the person who's just getting started or isn't spending that much and they just want to get a couple of miles and points and just use them in the future, and I think it's a great gateway to this entire portfolio. I would say if you want a no annual fee card, just get the Green, call it a day, and just dive into this world of miles and points, learn a lot more, and then upgrade to one of those other cards when you feel ready. If you guys have any questions, be sure to let us know in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. And if you want more content like this delivered straight to your sub box, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time. Take care.